Let's go to Nate. Go ahead, Nate.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. Tony Stewart said today that he feels as if that the track could use some more safer barriers, and we've also heard some drivers saying that maybe a repaving could be in its future. Where does NASCAR stand on both of those, and will you make any recommendations after this weekend?
Well, the racetrack is, they've taken on a lot of work since they've announced a date here. So, as always, we'll evaluate the facility itself and where safer barriers need to go. As we do, all throughout the year at every racetrack. We'll see what the racetrack actually has planned for a surface. We know that this has got some age on it, and we'll just have to see what the racetrack, what they feel that they need or can do moving forward.
Let's go to Reed and then Claire. Raise your hand there, Reed.
Reed Spencer with Sporting News. As a follow-up to Bob's question on the fuel injection, is NASCAR plugging into the fuel injection cars today to see what they're doing?
Absolutely. The one advantage, I guess, or the one additional feature to all of the fuel injection components is there's obviously the ability to log and record everything that happens during the process of today. So. No, we don't have to stand over their shoulder to watch anything. We can walk into the night and just hook up and walk off with what we need to look at. So, but the teams will have that same ability too. So.
Go ahead, Claire.
Larry Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. On a different topic, recently Tony Stewart took a step ahead in self-policing in the sport, and I'm wondering if he does that with your encouragement and support, and how you look at the self-policing as it stands now.
On or off the racetrack? On the racetrack? It's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
You go through times where it's not everything that you dreamed it would be. But I think all in all, the averages are there, and I'll just leave it at that. I think it's okay.
On or off the racetrack, policing, can you define both? Because
yes.
When I said really, I mean truthfully.
Yes,
Kmart parking lot, or?
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, Kmart parking lot or not. But it's a little off the beaten path question, Claire. I wasn't quite ready for that, but it's going okay.
Other questions? Nate has another one.
I have another one. This is sort of, I guess, a practical one about the fuel injection. The module that the teams have to put in there, is that, do they need like one for every engine, and does it last the life of the engine? Like, how does that work? Like, how many will they need for each car or team or whatever?
Well, what we know is McLaren has brought to the table a piece that's very reliable and has a pretty good lifespan. So in its simplest term, right, you could buy one ECU and every week transfer it from car to car to car. What we know from experience, specifically Cup teams, they don't do that. You could feasibly race 38 races with 2 race cars, excluding damage, right? But you don't do that. So in how many will you need? That's a very flexible question, because obviously somebody like Roush Yates' engines that has close to 200 engines in service might need a few more pieces than a Penske operation that's only supporting 2 cars. So the fact of the matter is yes, you could take one unit and just continue to work with it weekly, but the habits that the Cup teams have, I don't see that happening.
Jeff?
I'm a bit embarrassed to ask this question with all the brilliant engineering types back here, but when there's no carburetor, how is a carburetor restrictor plate? I mean, there will be no restrictor plate next year, or you'll be able to just electronically control what you do now. How will that change plate racing as we know it?
The easiest and most economical way for us to accurately and across the board in fairness control or restrict the horsepower of the engine is with the amount of air that's introduced into it, okay? So we'll continue to do it that way. Will it be in the form of what we know today's restrictor plate? Maybe, maybe not. We're looking at some other things. We more than likely won't go down the path of trying to restrict the engines through electronics because we have a much higher comfort level doing it in a mechanical. It's the same for every engine that's on a racetrack type of fashion, which will be through some sort of an air restriction.
Marty?
Marty Smith, ESPN. Forgive me if this was asked. I just walked in. But why is now the right time? Why is 2012 the right time to institute this technology as opposed to 5, 6, 10 years ago?
I think there's a comfort level with the manufacturers that we're dealing with today, the suppliers being McLaren. Also, when you go back 5 or 10 years ago, I think the architecture on the engines was quite different between all manufacturers, and I think to keep the level playing field was going to be very difficult for us. I think with everybody having new engines on board, all manufacturers, and the work that we've done in the last 3 or 4 years on that to get the horsepower where it needs to be, where it's level and fair. Now with the fuel injection, it's an easier transition for us.
And the part of that, Marty, I think is the most important, and Robin got to it towards the end there, is this is our first year in competition that we've had all 4 manufacturers competing with the engine architecture that was prescribed 5 years ago. So, you know, it's you build the foundation of the house first, right? So now that we've finally gotten to the point where the engine architecture is where we want it, or we've talked about the goals of getting to, it's much easier to advance to the next level of engine now.
Go ahead.
Eric Sano, Mainline Broadcasting. With Iowa rumbling about wanting a cup race and this being the first cup race here, are we still at the point where 36 is the number, and if anyone's going to add in a race, it's going to have to come from somewhere else, or are we open to ideas based on market draw?
We're pretty thin right now with what's available out there for off time or adding races. I mean, and the statement's been made. We are at the limit at 36, and plus 2 non-points races. So, as you've seen Atlanta move a date to here, we've moved things around over the past few years, whether it be Wilkesboro or Rockingham or California Speedway. Everybody knows the routine that those dates need to be moved around or traded amongst the ownership groups that are out there. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but right now I believe the company line is we are today happy with the number of weekends that we spent at the tracks.
Other questions? Before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize some special guests, and Claire alluded to that we had in our room today. And thanks to all of our partners that are here today, representatives from GM, representatives from Dodge, Ford, Toyota, and TRD are with us on the manufacturer side, and representatives with us in the exciting new venture of fuel injection are here from Holley, Freescale, and McLaren. And we appreciate you men and women being here today and all you do for our sport. And these folks are available if you'd like to visit with them afterwards as well, or if you have any follow-up questions for John or Robin. And we look forward to a great weekend here at Kentucky Speedway. Thank you.